Hey, I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Podcast below in the description. Go subscribe to that as well.
We're presented by Tito's Handmade Vodka.
The #1 vodka in America.
Savor responsibly. We made a video, the discussion that we had about Trey Lance being ahead of Zach Wilson at this point. The reviews have not been good. Here's the latest quote from Robert Saleh. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But he's at that point now where he's going to be able to stack up good days. We have the utmost confidence in him and his ability to figure out all the mistakes and correct them and get to a better place. So we talked about the belief that Trey Lance is ahead of him and kind of the confusion of, like, you know, with hindsight, even early, we haven't played a single preseason game yet. Does it make sense that Zach Wilson was drafted ahead of Trey Lance now that we get to see Trey Lance in person? So before we kind of let's address some of the YouTube comments in that. Snap Hook said, until the real bullets start flying, this is all BS. Josh said the Jets are trash. Anyone they draft would fail. If I were any of these QBs, I'd pull an Elway and Eli and just flat out say we won't play for the trash Jets, and neither should anyone else who values their career. Elias said, it's not that Lance is ahead of him. It's just that he's in a different situation. Their teams are preparing for different situations. Wilson is the starter week 1. Lance is QB2 with no pressure to start. Michael M. says, come on, guys, this is hilariously premature. Remember when Bears fans were hyped when Trubisky was lighting it up in the preseason his rookie year, and now we're convinced Lance is the next Allen or Mahomes based on what he's doing in practice? Seems like people are too quick to assume the physically gifted guys are going to be great. I hope it's true because I'm a Niner fan, but for every Mahomes or Allen, there's twice as many guys drafted on their tools that bust, like Gabbert, Bortles, Locker, Paxton Lynch, who we saw in a joint practice, by the way. Last YouTube comment, Trent's playing against the 2s, Zach's against the 1s. You be the judge, said Chris. And then somebody said, Niners 2s are better than the Jets 1s. And then Gary said, LOL. Okay. So, you know, what I think reading a lot of those comments is that, yes, Trey Lance has some advantages based on his location, but that is a big picture discussion. That's not just Trey Lance is going to be ahead because he's on the Niners and because Zach Wilson's on the Jets. He might stay ahead because he's on the Niners and because Zach Wilson's on the Jets.
Well, I think there are clearly two distinct ways to approach this. You can draft a guy really high and just throw him into the fire. And I believe in that. It's why I would always lean doing the faster you get him in, the faster you learn. I'm a Cal Poly guy. We learn by doing. And I say that like sarcastically. I do. I don't learn, and I never did well from just like reading it, learning it on the teacher, and then like regurgitate. When I do stuff, I feel I learn a lot better. I think most humans do, but one thing I learned being around football players, some guys learn on the practice field better. Some guys can learn from one rep mentally. Everyone learns differently. It is not arguable that it's easier to have a landing spot with a good team, right? When your team just has some talent around you, you get to ease into your career. Tom Brady benefited from having an elite defense when he first began starting, right? And it turns out is an elite head coach. Mahomes benefited from sitting, learning behind Alex. I think Josh Allen would not have been where he was at year 3 to lean into the $150 million guaranteed if he hadn't figured it out the first 2 years. Do you agree with that? Like, I don't think Josh Allen could have just sat for 2 years. His third year would have looked like his actual third year.
I agree, but you're right. A big part of that was Josh Allen had like some physical stuff he had to figure out on the football field. He was an inaccurate passer, and right.
Yeah, but I would say a lot of players just have some things that they need to figure out. Like you can tell Trey Lance is like everyone needs to improve on things.
Yeah, I mean Aaron Rodgers had to improve on things, and he did that in practice.
Disadvantage. He was inaccurate. I'm with you. Josh is a bad example. But I think when we look at the group of players, most of them showed relatively early. You're right. Josh was a major project who they just threw into the fire and it just somehow came out. But like Watson, Lamar, even Baker, obviously, you know, Mahomes got to play the last, like, you kind of saw some things, Herbert, right away. That's where I do think, even if his team's going to be shitty, and it's going to be difficult, the coordinators, think of who he's going up against. The three best defensive minds in football: Flores, McDermott, and Belichick. Like it could get really ugly. And my thing with Zach Wilson is like he's not as physically gifted as Trey Lance. The commenter that said physically gifted guys is 100% right. Just because you have great physical gifts, you and I were bullshitting at practice today. Like Colin Kaepernick, relative to Lance, which I think some people in NFL circles had done that, and it kind of just grew in the media circles, was bigger, definitely was faster straight line. Like when I say bigger, I mean he was taller, like a couple inches taller, like noticeably. Like he would have been like Sudfeld height, and Sudfeld looks like a 6'7" out there. He was faster, and his arm was stronger. I mean, he physically gifted. I mean, he was as elite, but he had zero touch, right? None, and it never improved. But like, you can already see Trey Lance has some touch to him, right? Justin Fields.
John, I didn't need to go to camp to see he had touch. Like we saw it on film.
No, we saw Justin Fields in college games show with touch. Now that doesn't ever mean that it translates right away, but I do think it's going to be very, very difficult. There are a select few guys who can go. Let's just hypothetically say they go 3-14. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. They just have Zach's just kind of overwhelmed. The team sucks. They just have a shitty ass season. That does not determine. Peyton Manning went 3-13 his first year. Remember you telling me the Edgerrin James story, Bill Polian? The reason they were drafting 4 was because they were just fucking god awful Peyton Manning's rookie year.
As Robert Salas said, John, I just saw a guy go into the Hall of Fame who had a 71 Madden rating his rookie year.
So
Let's take a moment to tell you people that this is brought to you in part by DraftKings promo code HAM.
Download the app. Use the promo code HAM when you do.
And by our friends at Decked.com/ham. Woo, look at that.
Decked.com/ham. Go get it if you got a truck. My thing, though, just that situation different from even Fields and definitely Lance. Like, not everyone can dig themselves out of just of a mother of a year, right? And a year in New York that's intense. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. And I just don't think he's as physically gifted as the other two guys that we keep talking about. I haven't seen Justin Fields in person, but I've seen enough to know he's got some special characteristics. And I've just seen Trey Lance enough to know, like, now, do I know that Trey Lance? Here's what I would say. If I put Trey Lance in that situation, do I think they would be better off long term? Basing it off the knowledge I have right now, August 10th, I do. But what I do not know is, like, not most human beings, it could derail your career going 3-14. Yeah. It could derail you. Shows you how mentally tough Peyton was, right? That he could handle that.
Yeah. I think it was his dad in the induction said Peyton. I think Peyton was a very fast learner. Peyton was able to take that year, come back the next year. On YouTube, Jets Gang says, "Y'all are dickheads. Shut up." What Lance can do that Zach can't. I think the thing that stood out to me about Trey Lance is, I've said it many times, is his consistency. The consistency with which he's accurate at his 225 or 230, whatever he is at 6'4". I think one thing we'll wonder, and we don't, like, this is not the conclusion. Neither one's even played a preseason game yet, so we haven't reached the conclusion to this whole scenario yet. But I do wonder if we'll look back and say the thing that we thought was the advantage for Zach Wilson in terms of not his advantage, but the advantage in people evaluating was you got to see all these games with him that you didn't get to see a lot of Trey Lance games. And time will tell. Maybe that turned out to just be misleading, right? As you had to see all these games. You didn't get to see Trey, so Trey felt like a big mystery. That could be misleading because a lot of Zach Wilson's games were not against teams with comparable talent to the team he was on. Now, again, here's the other thing with him, and I said this the other day. He is, when you watch him play, he plays like a gamer. Zach Wilson plays like a gamer, right? More so than I think even Trey did. I think Trey's, when you watch him, is a little more of a structured player than Zach Wilson. So, again, we got to watch him play. But if your team is not good around you, being a gamer can go one of two ways. Maybe you elevate or maybe it gets you into trouble. We don't know yet.
One thing that'll be interesting, because Tua, who looks small on an NFL field, weighed in at the combine a year and a half ago or whatever at 217. Zach this year.
That's bigger than him. That's bigger than Wilson.
Yeah, 214. Neither guy, when you just see
but
him
he's 6'3". How tall's Tua listed? Zach Wilson's listed at 6'3". Was that his real height?
I think 6'1". Tua. Tua's thick. I mean, I saw him a couple years ago at the Super Bowl. They don't look big when you see them just in their uniform in the NFL. Now, Baker didn't either, and he doesn't, but he gets away with it. Now, the difference is, I would say, they're going to depend on Zach, and rightfully so, to be a playmaker. Baker no longer like Baker. No, you don't make plays. You just play within the play call. And luckily, our offense is elite, and you have the fit. You can carry it out, right? They're not asking Baker to like do 360s in the pocket and roll out. Like that is something Zach, big picture, does bring to the table, right? Like you said, he's a much better athlete. But you're right. He looks smaller to me.
Yeah.
But on paper, he's the same size as Justin Fields.